You really thought you could just walk through here like you belong? The words hit harder than the shove. Aaliyah staggered back a step, her books slipping from her arms and scattering across the polished floor of Lincoln Hills High School. The hallway, bathed in the sterile glow of fluorescent lights, had fallen into that deafening silence that only comes when cruelty demands an audience. Students turned. Some stopped, some whispered. Others reached for their phones with the kind of gleeful anticipation that only pain can provide. Chloe Whitford, 15, blonde, tall, and terrifying the way only girls with unchecked power could be, stood with arms crossed and a sneer curling her lip. Her friends flanked her like a wall, all designer shoes, manicured nails, and smug expressions. They wore the school's unofficial uniform of privilege, confidence without consequences. Aaliyah Parker bent quickly, her hands trembling as she reached for her fallen notebook. "Excuse me," she said quietly, her voice steady but soft. "No, I don't think I will," Chloe snapped, kicking the notebook just out of reach. "You bumped into me? Again? Or is that just something you people do?" Gasps fluttered through the corridor. Aaliyah froze. "You people?" she echoed, her eyes lifting. Chloe's smirk widened. "Yeah, you know, with the thrift store backpacks, the ashy knees, and that thing on your head. What is that even? A nest?" A low ripple of laughter moved through the hallway. Aaliyah's cheeks burned. Her hair, coiled thick and styled into a soft crown of braids, had always made her feel beautiful. Her mother used to say it was her armor. Now, under the fluorescent spotlight of judgment, it felt like a target. "I didn't bump you," Aaliyah said, standing up straight. Her voice had more weight this time. "I was walking to class." Chloe stepped closer. "No one asked you to speak. You don't just get to take up space and pretend you matter here." More laughter. Phones raised. Someone whispered, "She's filming it." "Leave me alone," Aaliyah said. "Ah, is the scholarship charity case going to cry?" Chloe pouted mockingly. Then, with the calculated cruelty of someone who's never been told no, she spat. A thick glob landed on Aaliyah's cheek. Time stopped. Aaliyah's body went rigid. The sound, that quiet, with impact, echoed louder than any slap. Her vision blurred, not from tears, but from a heat of humiliation coursing through her. She didn't wipe it immediately. She stood there, spit on her face, silence crushing her chest, and the world watching. Some gasped, some laughed louder, others said nothing. That silence, that empty complicity, hurt more than the act itself. And then, footsteps. Mrs. Bennett, history teacher, mid-50s, cardigan and pearls, arrived on the scene with a clipboard in hand and a practiced frown. She took one look at the two girls and said, "What's going on here?" Chloe folded her arms. "She shoved me." Aaliyah's mouth fell open. "That's not true." Mrs. Bennett looked from Chloe to Aaliyah. "Did anyone see her shove Chloe?" A few of Chloe's friends nodded enthusiastically. One even added, "She called her a bitch." Aaliyah blinked. "That's a lie. I didn't say anything like that." Mrs. Bennett sighed. "Aaliyah, there's no need to raise your voice. Come with me." "What?" Aaliyah turned, incredulous. "She spit on me." Mrs. Bennett didn't flinch. "Language. You'll explain yourself to the principal. Let's go." Aaliyah stood frozen for a beat, her fists clenched, her face still damp. Her. Pride battered. But she walked. As she was led away, she heard one student whisper, "She's going to get expelled." Another laughed. Should have kept her head down. At the main office, the walls were painted in a bland pastel green, as if that could soften the blow of the administrative indifference that ruled inside. Principal Downing sat behind a wide oak desk. Sipping tea like the chaos outside her door was a distant weather report. "Ms. Parker," she said coolly, not looking up, "please sit." Aaliyah sat. Mrs. Bennett stood behind her like a moral authority carved in marble. "We've received concerning reports of you behaving aggressively toward another student," Downing said, "and using inappropriate language." Aaliyah's eyes widened. "That's not what happened." "Chloe Whitford's parents are already on the phone," Downing continued. "They're upset, rightfully so." "She spit on me," Aaliyah said, "in front of everyone. People recorded it. You can check the cameras." Principal Downing sighed, finally looking up. Cameras aren't always reliable for hallway incidents, but multiple students have confirmed your behavior. Chloe's friends. Aaliyah snapped. They're lying. Watch your tone, Mrs. Bennett warned. Aaliyah leaned forward. You want to punish me because it's easier than dealing with the truth, but I didn't do anything. She attacked me, and everyone saw it. The principal folded her hands. Until the matter is reviewed, you're suspended for 3 days. Suspended? Aaliyah's voice broke. You're punishing me? Until the matter is reviewed, Principal Downing repeated. Aaliyah swallowed hard. She could feel the panic clawing at her throat. But then she looked at the clock. 10:42 a.m. She smiled, just slightly. My dad's on his way, she said. Principal Downing raised an eyebrow. He'll have to accept the school's disciplinary process. Mrs. Bennett chimed in. Maybe if you had behaved differently. Aaliyah stood. He'll want to speak with you directly. From outside, the distant, unfamiliar growl of engines rumbled closer. Tires screeched to a halt. Principal Downing waved her hand. You'll wait in the lobby. As Aaliyah was let out, the secretary looked up nervously. Then came the sound of multiple car doors slamming shut. Moments later, the double glass doors opened. Soldiers, uniformed, precise, armed with nothing but presence. And behind them, tall, composed, eyes sharp enough to silence a battlefield, General Marcus D. Parker stepped into the school lobby. He didn't speak immediately. He didn't need to. A hush fell over the staff behind the counter. Students peered through hallway windows. Whispers darted like static through the building. Aaliyah straightened as he approached. The general's face was unreadable, but his eyes locked on hers with quiet fire. Are you okay? He asked. Aaliyah nodded slowly. They're lying about what happened. He turned. Where's the principal? Karen Downing appeared seconds later, her smile brittle. General Parker. What a surprise. He didn't return the pleasantry. Take me to your office. Now. She hesitated. We were just reviewing the situation. Then let's review it together, he interrupted. As he walked past her, Downing scrambled to keep up. Mrs. Bennett, who'd lingered in the hallway, paled visibly. Inside the office, the temperature dropped. I want access to the hallway surveillance footage from this morning. All angles, the general said. General, we haven't yet. Now. Downing clicked nervously at her keyboard. Footage loaded. There it was. The shove, the kick, the spit, the laughter, and Aaliyah, small, stunned, soaked in spit. Mrs. Bennett spoke up. That footage doesn't tell the full story. Several students confirmed. Students under Chloe Whitford's influence? General Parker turned to her. Or perhaps under yours? Silence. He picked up his phone. This is General Parker. I'm requesting immediate federal oversight of a racial discrimination case at Lincoln Hills High School, Virginia. I'll need a civil rights officer on site before the end of the day. Downing stammered. Sir, this is highly irregular. You've been irregular, he said, his voice cold steel. This is accountability. Through the glass walls, dozens of students now watched. News traveled fast. Chloe, pale and trembling, stood just beyond the office, surrounded by whispers and sidelong glances. She wasn't smiling anymore, and somewhere deep in her gut, Aaliyah knew the story had only begun. Aaliyah sat quietly in the car as the motorcade pulled away from Lincoln Hills High, her body rigid, her eyes locked on the side mirror, behind them. The school shrank with distance, but the weight of what happened still clung to her like a second skin. Her father's presence had shifted the balance of power for a moment, just enough to stop the bleeding, but she knew better than to believe the battle was over. General Parker didn't speak immediately. His eyes remained on the road ahead, jaw clenched, fingers flexing on the steering wheel. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was strategy. Aaliyah knew her father. He calculated before speaking, measured before reacting. War had taught him that words could be weapons or weaknesses. They lied. She said finally, her voice almost inaudible. All of them. Mrs. Bennett, the principal, Chloe, her friends. He nodded once, sharply. I saw. They didn't even flinch, she whispered, like it was normal. He exhaled slowly through his nose. Because to them, it is. That truth, quiet, bitter, unavoidable, settled in her chest. Aaliyah turned to the window. Do you think they'll try to bury it? They already have, he said. Now we dig it up. By the time the investigation team from the Department of Education arrived, the atmosphere inside Lincoln Hills had changed. What was once polished indifference was now tense calculation. Teachers glanced nervously at one another. Students whispered in bathrooms and behind locker doors. The golden immunity that protected the school's elite was beginning to crack. And cracks, Aaliyah knew, had a way of letting light in. She stayed home during the suspension, not by choice but by strategy. Her father insisted she rest. Let them scramble, he said. Let them show their true faces. From home, she watched the recordings. The one students had leaked anonymously. There were at least 5 angles of the incident. One video zoomed in just as the spit landed. Another showed Mrs. Bennett arriving and ignoring everything. The comments online were a mix of support, disbelief, and disgusting vitriol. One anonymous post read, typical, play the race card when you don't get your way. Another, if she didn't want to get spit on, she should act like a person. But buried among the noise was one message that made her heart race. It was sent privately through an encrypted email service. The subject line read, I know what Chloe's been doing. No name, no details, just a single sentence. She's been planning things for months, and I have proof. When she showed her father, he stared at the screen for a long time. Do you recognize the sender? She shook her head. But whoever it is, they used a burner email. This wasn't a mistake. Then this person is scared, he said, and they have reason to be. The following day, Chloe returned to school, but the air had changed for her too. Whispers followed her now. Some students avoided her entirely. Others offered fake smiles, trying to stay on the right side of whatever storm was coming. Chloe pretended not to notice. Her walk was still confident, her hair still perfect, but her eyes flicked toward every camera in the hallway like someone being hunted. In the teacher's lounge, Mrs. Bennett packed up her things under the scrutiny of a district supervisor. It's not what it looks like, she muttered. I've been teaching for 20 years. I'm not racist. I just didn't want to escalate things. The supervisor didn't respond. He simply handed her a letter of administrative leave and walked away. Karen Downing, the principal, fared no better. By noon, she was called into an emergency board meeting. She left the building an hour later with her face pale and her mouth a tight line. Students gathered near the front steps, watching her go. A few clapped. Most just stared. Meanwhile, Aaliyah returned to school the following Monday. As she stepped through the front doors, the room fell silent. Even the security guard, who usually barely glanced at her, stood up a little straighter. She walked slowly, deliberately, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her braids glinting under the morning sun pouring through the glass. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. It didn't feel like power. It felt like a trap. In the hallway, a girl from her English class, Melanie, a quiet sophomore who rarely spoke, leaned toward her. Hey, she whispered. They're watching you. Who? Aaliyah asked. Everyone, Melanie said, but especially her. Melanie tilted her head slightly. Across the hall, Chloe stood with 2 of her friends, whispering, glaring. But when Aaliyah looked back at her, she didn't look away. Not this time. She met her gaze, steady and unflinching. Chloe blinked first. At lunch, Aaliyah sat alone. She wasn't trying to be a symbol. She didn't want to be a headline or a martyr. She just wanted to be left alone, to survive the day without being reminded that everything she did was now political. But even in solitude, eyes followed her. Phone snapped photos. Whispers filled the corners. A tray slammed beside hers. Aaliyah flinched. Sorry, the boy said quickly. He had dark hair, a nervous smile, and a jacket with the school's journalism club logo. Didn't mean to scare you. It's fine, Aaliyah said. You're Ben, right? Yeah, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Ben Ortega. I'm the features editor. I wanted to ask if you'd talk to the school paper. I'm not interested, she said, reaching for her water. I get that. Totally, he said. But I think you should know something. She looked up. What? He leaned in. There's a group. Online. Private. Chloe runs it. Aaliyah froze. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. What kind of group? It's not a school club. It's off-site. Private invite only. But I have screenshots. Someone gave them to me last semester, and I didn't do anything with them because I was scared. Screenshots of what? Ben swallowed. Chats. Pictures. Plans. It's not just about you. They talk about other students too. Black students. Immigrant students. LGBTQ students. It's bad. Aaliyah stared at him. Why now? Because now it matters, he said. And because you're not alone anymore. That night, Aaliyah showed her father the screenshots. The messages were vile. Chloe and a few others had created a chat called LHHS Purity Watch. There were photos of students taken secretly, with mocking captions and slurs. One message read, "Should we humiliate her next week? I have an idea involving lunch trays." Another had a poll, who gets the next wake-up call? Aaliyah's name was at the top. Jesus Christ, General Parker whispered. Scrolling, this is organized. We can go to the police. Aaliyah said, we will, he replied, but not before the school sees it, in public. The next morning, everything changed. At the weekly school assembly, the interim principal, a woman named Ms. Aldridge, sent by the district, stood at the microphone. Her tone was dry, serious. Before we begin today's announcements, we have a special visitor. Doors open at the back of the auditorium. General Parker walked down the aisle, not in uniform this time, but still unmistakable. Behind him was a federal officer from the Department of Education and 2 civil rights attorneys. The room buzzed. Aaliyah sat near the front. She didn't move, didn't blink. The general took the microphone. His voice was calm, precise. Some of you know who I am. For those who don't, I am General Marcus D. Parker, Commander of United States Central Command and father of Aaliyah Parker. I am not here today as a military officer. I'm here as a father, as a citizen, and as a black man who's tired of seeing our children attacked and ignored. A hush fell. Last week, my daughter was publicly assaulted in this very building. The incident was recorded, witnessed, and buried by faculty who chose comfort over courage. But what you don't know is that this wasn't an isolated event. This was part of a pattern, a system, an organized effort. He paused. And we have proof. The projector screen behind him lit up. Screenshots of the group chat filled the space. Slurs, images, polls, plans, names, gasps, cries, students shifting in their seats. Chloe's face turned white. And then someone screamed. Not from fear, but from shame. The images on the projector screen did what weeks of denials, half-truths, and silence had failed to do. They shattered the illusion. The students in the auditorium weren't just watching a slideshow. They were watching a carefully protected hierarchy collapse. A message dated 2 weeks before the assault on Aaliyah read, "Target confirmed. Monday morning. East Corridor. Cameras don't reach that section. Make it count." Underneath, a series of laughing emojis. Chloe's name was on the post. Her profile photo. Her digital fingerprint. The reaction in the room was immediate and layered. Horror, confusion, disbelief. Some students gasped. Others murmured. A few looked around like they had just realized they were sitting inside a lie. The screen scrolled on. Messages mocking students for their accents. Screenshots of private Instagram stories. A photo of a hijabi student in the cafeteria with the caption, "Terrorist Lunch Special." And then a poll titled, "Who's next?" Aaliyah's name was circled in red. General Parker's voice remained calm but deliberate as he narrated. These are not just cruel jokes. These are targeted acts. Systemic bullying based on race, religion, sexuality. This isn't just about one girl. This is about all of you, and about who gets protected and who gets punished. The room was breathless. Teachers shifted uncomfortably in the back rows. Chloe sat frozen near the front, her hands gripping the sides of her seat. Her face, usually composed and sharp with sarcasm, was hollow now. Her friends, the same ones who had flanked her during the attack, inched away from her like rats abandoning a sinking ship. The screen went black. Silence hung thick in the air. That's when Ben Ortega stood up from his seat in the third row. He didn't speak right away. He walked to the front, clutching a folder. His voice trembled but carried. "I was given these screenshots 3 months ago," he said, "by someone who didn't feel safe coming forward. Someone who knew what this group was doing, but didn't want to be the next target. I didn't publish the story because I was afraid to, but when I saw what happened to Aaliyah, I couldn't stay quiet anymore." He turned to the crowd. The person who collected all this, who screenshotted and archived and kept every message, was Chloe's own friend, her best friend. A stunned murmur spread across the room. General Parker stepped back as a girl slowly stood from the far left section. Small, pale, trembling. It was Haley Myers. Quiet, loyal, invisible Haley. Chloe's right hand since the 6th grade. She stood with her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "I was in the group," she said, voice cracking. "I was part of it. At first, it was jokes. Just jokes. But then it got worse. Meaner. Crueler. Chloe, she loved it. She kept pushing it further. We all laughed, and I didn't say anything until she picked Aaliyah. And I saw what she was planning. I knew it wasn't just a joke anymore. It was something else. Something sick." Her eyes were wide with shame. "So I took screenshots. I saved everything. I didn't know who to trust. I didn't think anyone would believe me, but I gave them to Ben." Chloe's mouth finally opened. "You little bitch." The room erupted in chaos. Gasps, movement, security guards stepping in. Principal Aldridge took the mic language. "Sit down, Miss Whitford." Chloe stood. "You think this is fair? You think I'm the only one?" She turned to the audience, pointing. "Half of you laughed too. Half of you shared the memes. Don't act like I'm the monster when all of you helped build Cage." Students shifted uneasily. Some looked down. Others stared at Chloe with disgust. But no one stood with her. Not this time. Aldridge spoke again, firm. "Chloe Whitford, you are suspended indefinitely pending expulsion and a formal investigation. Due to the nature of the materials presented, law enforcement has been notified, and your parents have been contacted." Chloe's face twisted. "My dad won't be able to save you," Aldridge said sharply. "Not from this." Chloe looked around. The auditorium of people who once feared or envied her now filled only with silence and distance. She stormed out, her heels echoing in the stunned stillness. Haley sat down slowly, eyes glassy. Aaliyah didn't move. She hadn't said a word throughout the entire presentation. But now she stood. She looked out over the rows of students. "You all saw it," she said quietly. "And most of you said nothing. Some of you laughed. Some of you filmed it. Some of you pretended it wasn't your problem. But now that it's on a screen, now you care?" No one responded. "I don't want your sympathy," she continued. "I want you to ask yourselves why it took a general and federal lawyers to make you look at me like a human being." She walked off stage without waiting for applause. There wasn't any. Just silence. In the following days, the school became unrecognizable. Investigators interviewed students and teachers. Parents demanded answers. Local news vans parked outside the main gate. Chloe's parents, once prominent donors to the school, were now avoiding the cameras and issuing frantic press statements. They claimed their daughter had been manipulated and misunderstood. Nobody bought it. The group chat had been printed in full and handed over to the authorities. Charges were being considered, not just for Chloe, but for anyone who had participated in targeted harassment. At least 6 students were suspended. 3 teachers were placed on administrative review, including Mrs. Bennett, whose name appeared in a text from one of the students joking, "Don't worry, Bennett's on our side." Principal Downing, whose handling of the incident was now under legal scrutiny, issued a carefully worded apology on local television. But the damage was done. The illusion of Lincoln Hills as an elite, untouchable institution had shattered. And Aaliyah? She stopped walking with her head down. People still stared, but it was different now. Some apologized. Some avoided her. Some tried to become her friend overnight. She didn't trust any of it. She sat alone in class, alone at lunch, alone in the library. But she carried herself differently now. Not because she felt powerful, but because she had survived. One afternoon, Haley approached her in the courtyard. She didn't speak at first. She just stood there, holding a flash drive. "There's more," she said. "From even earlier. Stuff Chloe deleted. I backed it all up, in case you want it." Aaliyah took it silently. "Why are you giving me this?" Haley looked down. "Because I should have done something sooner. And I didn't. I'm sorry." Aaliyah stared at her for a long moment. "Sorry doesn't erase anything." "I know," Haley whispered, and she walked away. That night, Aaliyah opened the files. There were videos, comments, a pattern, years of cruelty dressed up as jokes. Chloe had been practicing her power for a long time, and nobody had stopped her. Until now. Her father sat beside her, arms folded. "Do you want to release it all?" he asked. Aaliyah didn't answer for a moment. Then, "No, just enough." He nodded. "You're in control now." She looked at the screen, at the faces, the words, the timeline of every wound she didn't even know she had. "Yeah," she said, "I am." In the weeks following the assembly, Lincoln Hills High School stopped pretending. The mask had been torn off, and beneath the glossy brochures and polished walls, everyone saw what had always been there. Fear, favoritism, silence, and the quiet machinery of power built to protect the same students who abused it. The district announced a full audit of disciplinary actions from the last 5 years, uncovering patterns that could no longer be ignored. Black students suspended at disproportionately high rates, complaints dismissed without documentation. Teachers consistently protecting the same names. Parents gathered at town hall meetings, some demanding reform, others panicking at the thought of losing their grip on the illusion they had bought into. Chloe Whitford's expulsion became official. Her parents pulled her out of school the same day they sold their house. Rumors said they were moving out of state, to somewhere less public, somewhere quieter. Her name became radioactive. Former friends deleted old photos. Teachers who once praised her now claimed they never really trusted her. Aaliyah watched all of this not with triumph, but with the distant, steady awareness of someone who knew this wasn't victory. It was just exposure. You don't fix rot by turning on the lights. But still, something had shifted, not in how people treated her. That remained awkward, performative, drenched in guilt and overcompensation, but in how she saw herself. For the first time, she understood the weight she carried wasn't shame. It was truth, and it had never been hers to carry alone. The day Mrs. Bennett packed up her desk for good, Aaliyah passed her in the hallway. The teacher stopped her with a half-hearted smile. "Try and pretend something remained salvageable." "I always knew you were a bright girl," she said, voice thin. "I just didn't want you to be angry." Aaliyah tilted her head. "You didn't want me to be angry, even when I had every reason to be." "Anger makes people uncomfortable," Bennett said, her hand fluttering near her scarf. "Especially coming from, black girls." Aaliyah asked, her voice cool. "Yeah, I know." Mrs. Bennett looked away. "I made a mistake." "No," Aaliyah said. "You made a choice." She walked past her without looking back. A few days later, Principal Aldridge called Aaliyah into her office. The walls were bare. No awards, no smiling student photos. Just a temporary leader in a school trying to figure out what it even was. "I'd like to offer you a position on the Student Equity Board," Aldridge said. "We're forming a team of students to help reshape disciplinary policy and training recommendations. You'd be a vital voice." Aaliyah hesitated. "Is this to help me, or to help the school's image?" Aldridge didn't flinch. "Both. But I won't insult you by pretending your voice should have come second. It should have come first." Aaliyah considered this. "I'll join," she said finally, "but on one condition." "What's that?" "You give Ben Ortega and Haley Myers the same seat. They took risks. They spoke up when it mattered." Aldridge nodded. Done. In the cafeteria, tables rearranged themselves. Students who once ruled the social ecosystem now drifted on the edges. Some tried to apologize to Aaliyah. Poorly, nervously, mostly with platitudes like, "I didn't know it was that serious," or "I always thought you were cool." She didn't accept their pity. She didn't need it. Instead, she found unlikely company with the quiet students, the ones who stayed out of everyone's way, the ones who had learned, like her, how to read a room before entering it. Melanie started sitting with her during lunch. So did a Vietnamese girl named Lena who'd once had her accent mocked by Chloe's group, and a shy boy named Evan who'd always seemed invisible until he showed up at the equity meeting with pages of notes on fair discipline. A new table was forming, not based on fear or status, but something slower, sturdier. Trust. On a rainy afternoon, as Aaliyah was walking home, a black SUV pulled up beside her. The window rolled down. It was General Parker. "Thought I'd give you a ride," he said. She got in silently, shaking off her wet sleeves. "You know," he said as they drove, "when I was your age, I had to fight just to eat lunch in peace. Things look different now, but some things don't change. Power protects itself." "Yeah," Aaliyah murmured, "and it doesn't give up easy." He nodded. "That's why what you did matters. You didn't just speak. You made them listen." She looked out the window, raindrops tracing down the glass. "You know what scares me most?" she said. "That the next time it happens to someone else, people pretend like this never happened." Her father glanced over at her. "Then you don't let them forget. That's the real fight. Not the speech. Not the cameras. The remembering." She nodded slowly. "It's exhausting." "That's why you build with others," he said. "So you don't have to carry the weight alone." They pulled into the driveway. The porch light was on, casting a soft glow over the front steps. "Do you regret joining the Army?" she asked suddenly. He looked surprised. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but not because of the danger, because of the silence. You see things. You swallow things. You're told not to speak because it's not the right time. But silence kills more slowly than bullets." Aaliyah nodded. She understood that now. "I'm glad you showed up," she said. "Not just at school. In general." He smiled faintly. "I always will." Back at Lincoln Hills, changes began taking root. Slowly, quietly. The district mandated anti-bias training. Teachers were reassigned. Aaliyah's image became part of a school mural honoring students who had bravely challenged injustice, but she refused to attend the unveiling. She didn't want to be a symbol. She just wanted to be heard. In the hallway, someone had scrawled on a locker in Sharpie, "Silence is violence." The janitor tried to clean it. The students wrote it again. This time in permanent marker. In the corner of the equity boardroom, a note remained pinned to the corkboard. It wasn't signed, but Aaliyah recognized Haley's handwriting. It read, "The worst thing they ever taught us was to survive quietly." Spring arrived quietly in Arlington. The cherry blossoms bloomed along the edges of the school parking lot, their petals gathering in soft piles at the corners of the sidewalks, like they too had stories to tell. Lincoln Hills was quieter now. Not silent, but hushed in a way that suggested something had shifted for good. The hallways still hummed with the shuffle of lockers and laughter and bells, but gone was the cruel edge that once hovered like static in the air. In its place, there was space. Space to speak. Space to breathe. Aaliyah walked those same corridors, but she no longer moved like someone trying to disappear. Her shoulders no longer curled inward. Her eyes no longer darted from face to face, bracing for the next blow. She didn't walk like she was fighting gravity anymore. She walked like she was finally carrying her own weight, and no one else's. The equity board met every Tuesday after school in room 112, the old drama classroom that had once been used mostly for storage. Now it was a space full of messy notes taped to walls, half-empty coffee cups, and heated discussions that sometimes left the room buzzing for hours after everyone had gone home. Aaliyah sat near the window. Ben Ortega sat next to her, furiously typing minutes on his laptop. Haley had taken on the task of researching past disciplinary trends, a form of penance that, while unspoken, was understood and respected. Other students had joined too: Lena, Evan, even Marcus and Gwen, who once told Aaliyah he stayed silent because he thought it wasn't his place. Now he sat beside her, scribbling policy suggestions and arguing passionately about restorative justice. Change didn't arrive in a parade. It didn't feel like justice served on a silver tray. It was slow, frustrating, full of compromise and resistance. But it was happening. One morning, in Mr. Holloway's literature class, the assignment was to write a personal manifesto, one page, typed, about what you believe in and why. Aaliyah handed hers in early. The title read, I Believe in Disruption. She wrote about silence, about fear, about how easy it is for institutions to let things rot when no one wants to feel uncomfortable. She wrote about being called too sensitive, too angry, too dramatic, about the day someone spit on her in a hallway full of people, and how the worst part wasn't the act. It was a room full of witnesses who said nothing. She ended it with a single line. If I must make people uncomfortable to be seen as human, then let them stay uncomfortable. Mr. Holloway returned the paper the next day with a simple note scribbled in the margin. Thank you for making me uncomfortable. Graduation came early for the seniors, but for Aaliyah, a freshman, the year still had months to go. She didn't rush it. She started taking longer walks home. Sometimes her father joined her, sometimes not. On one of those walks, she passed the old Whitford house. The windows were empty, the yard overgrown, the driveway cracked and quiet. Chloe had vanished from a narrative. No Instagram, no Snap, no whispers about a comeback. But Aaliyah didn't feel satisfaction, only distance, only the sense that Chloe had been a symptom, not the disease, and that the real enemy was the comfort of looking away. One Friday afternoon, she sat on the porch with her dad, legs curled under her, a cup of tea in her hands. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the lawn. You know, she said softly, sometimes I still feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. He nodded, sipping his coffee. That feeling doesn't go away. You just learn to live anyway. She glanced at him. Were you ever scared? All the time, he said. I just didn't have the luxury of showing it. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I don't want to live my whole life like that. You won't, he said, because you already did the hardest part. You made them see you. But I don't want to be seen because I suffered, she murmured. I want to be seen because I matter. He looked at her then, really looked. You are, and you do. Later that night, as she lay in bed, the window cracked open to let the breeze in. Aaliyah pulled out her journal. She flipped past pages of messy poetry, letters never sent, quotes scrawled in anger. She stopped on a blank page, picked up her pen, and wrote, What they did to me is not who I am. What I did with it is. She closed the book and exhaled. For the first time in a long time, she felt the kind of quiet that came not from suppression, but from peace. The kind you earn,